Hello, and welcome to PCI Webinars. Today's webinar, Showcase Your Collection, Book Displays for Adults, with Maggie Rose. Maggie is a librarian at the Twinsburg Public Library in Northern Ohio. She coordinates the library book displays and is responsible for the audiobook and board games collections. Maggie also teaches computer classes and sits on the Reference and Information Services Division and Adult Services Division action consoles for the Ohio Library Council. She started library work in the 5th grade as a shelver and volunteer in her school library. As a teen, she started shelving her local public library and has held many library positions since then. Maggie graduated summa cum laude from the University of Akron with a BA in English and a minor in Classical Studies. She received her MLIS from Kent State and has been working as a librarian for more than 6 years. Maggie loves gardening, camping, and her boisterous family, which consists of a spouse, a boy, a girl, a dog, 5 cats, and 9 chickens. Coming to you now from Northern Ohio,
Yes,
it is
chickens.
Maggie Rose.
Well, hello everyone. How's my sound? Can you hear me? All right, hands up if you can hear me all right. Excellent. Thanks everyone. Welcome, good morning. Thank you for attending, logging into this webinar. Here where I am in Ohio, we've just now got rid of about the 2 inches of snow we had over the weekend. So that's Ohio for you, right? Okay, so we're all here today to think about ways that we can showcase our library's collection. And before we get started, I want to make clear that I'm going to use the term book displays ubiquitously for anything that you put on display. So it doesn't have to be just books on display. And we'll get into that a little bit later. All right. So why are we interested in book displays? Well, we want to showcase our library's collection. We want to show our patrons that libraries are more than just books. We provide services. We circulate movies. We circulate DVDs, audio CDs, and a lot of people, surprisingly, still don't know that we have all these amazing resources for our community, and they're free. So book displays are a great way to show everyone what they can make use of at their public library. You can use book displays to highlight a library program. If you are building a partnership with another local agency, say a Girl Scout troop does a project and they need to display their project somewhere, you can incorporate that into your book display schedule. Also, book displays advertise our worth to our community. It's a show, don't tell kind of policy. If people see that, we have all the latest books and these gadgets and these downloads and these apps and stuff, then they'll know why their public library is important. All right, so when you are thinking about either reformatting your library's book display guidelines or whether you're just starting fresh, what you want to do is you want to make sure that whatever you're doing aligns with your library's mission statements, the policies, and the goals of your library. The mission statement for Twinsburg is to educate, inform, entertain, and inspire. And that's very broad, and I love it very much because just about anything we do as librarians is going to satisfy one of those 4 things. So as long as I am satisfying our mission statement, we are good to go. So you want to develop an action plan also. So you're going to do book displays, and the reason why you're doing them is to fulfill your library's mission statement. So the next thing you need is an action plan. You need to assign someone to be in charge of book displays. At least one person must be responsible for organizing it, and they have to know they're responsible for it. I mean, I think we've all been to one of those meetings where someone says, yeah, we ought to do this. And then everyone agrees that it should be done, and you move on to the next topic, but no one knows exactly who is is responsible for taking on this project. And so you definitely want to have a very clear action plan, who is going to be responsible for this. And then you also need to know your end game. Book displays have many different purposes. You can have a display that's solely there to boost circulation of a particular genre or a particular medium or a format. Um, you can have a book display that's supposed to highlight a community event or to advertise one of your programs or services. So know why you're doing your book displays, and that'll help you in the future with your plans. So the basics of book displays. Oh, also, I'm not seeing any discussion. Let's see. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. I just had to click on over. Hi, everyone. Okay, great. Thanks, everyone, for saying hi. Feel free to interrupt me and type your question into the discussion thing, and I am happy to be interrupted and go off on a tangent, but I do only have a limited amount of time with you this morning, so I'm going to move pretty quick. The basics of book displays. Where should the displays be set up? You want to do it in high traffic areas, you want people to see them, you want them to be effective. When should your book displays be changed? There's a lot of variables with that, including loan periods, how many items you have that suits the particular display theme. You want to know how we are going to keep track of your displays. How are we going to know who's in charge of this one? How are we going to know when the next one's coming up, when that one's coming down? And basically, what do you use to build your displays? You can use just about anything. So let's get into further detail about the basics. So location, location, location. Real estate. You want to find places, high traffic areas, service desks, self-checkout desks. Those are great for those kinds of pop-up, impulse book displays where you're like, oh, just grab this one more thing as I'm checking out. People use restrooms, and it's a good idea to get some kind of book display somewhere near a restroom, but not so close that people actually take the items into the restroom. Kind of gross. So be aware of that. Maybe try to get them when they're leaving the restroom. Entrances and exits are a great location for library book displays. I know when I go to my local grocery store, there's always this huge, giant display of the latest produce and fruit, and I have to walk around it to get into the store. And they put it there on purpose. So we can do the same with our library book displays. We can get a card table and a tablecloth and set it right up front at the front door. When you think about going to visit bookstores, I'm sure we're all book people, so we've been to a bookstore, and there's always that bargain bin right up front. We can mimic that in libraries to help us in our mission or goal to provide entertainment, education, inspiration. We can use different models for that. Hallways are pretty fun. We've had some really good luck with hallways. We just set tables alongside one wall in a main hallway, and people actually stop. When people are walking down a hallway, they're just going from point A to point B. If you make them stop for something interesting, something eye-popping, something that, oh, I didn't know the library did that. So hallways are usually a pretty good place for book displays. Also, my favorite is the top or the bottom of the stairs or near elevator doors, especially elevator doors, because people tend to have to wait there. And so getting a book display there, you kind of almost have a captive audience. Also, when you're going downstairs, you're generally looking down as you go. So getting a book display at the bottom of the stairs or the top of the stairs, the same principle. People are going upstairs, they're looking up as they go. So it's almost a captive audience. They're going to be staring at that book display the whole time they're going upstairs, trying to figure out what it's about. So beyond locations, you want to figure out how often you're going to be changing out your displays. Do you have a weekly loan period? Do you have a bi-weekly loan period? Do you have a 3-week loan period? A lot of that is going to, you should take into consideration when you're thinking about how often to change your displays. If you have patrons that come to your library every single day, you don't want your library displays to get stale for them. But if you only have patrons that visit on a monthly basis, then you might be able to keep your displays up longer. I mean, this is something that you have to adjust according to your own observations of your particular library system. You also need to consider how many displays are available. If you have 18 book displays that need to be managed at all times, you may not have to change them as quickly. You may just say, okay, this month this one's going to be this one and this one's going to be that one, and then stagger the changing out so that there's always something that's fresh. Also consider doing a permanent or a semi-permanent book display. In Twinsburg, we do a semi-permanent holiday display. It's up from the week before Thanksgiving until Martin Luther King Day. And that's where we just put all of our holiday books, the baking, the cooking books, the Christmas stories, the Christmas music CDs, all of the Christmas films. And that way people who know that they're here for a specific reason can just head straight to that display and find what they want instead of having to comb through the whole collection to pull out those holiday things. Also, for a permanent display, I have dedicated, in the past, I used to work at the Worcester Library, and we had an entire display shelf that was only local author materials. That was the only thing that was allowed to go on there, and it was a great way to pull them out of the collection and display them for our community who didn't know that we had local authors. And it was so popular, we decided to keep it forever, indefinitely. But in that situation, we had a number of displays, so we weren't missing out on opportunities. So it's a checks and balance thing. So the next thing we're going to talk about is keeping track. I mean, schedule displays ahead of time. I mean, we all know that Thanksgiving is coming. We all know that St. Patrick's Day is coming. Schedule those ahead of time so that you will have a more of a plan. And also you want to note the responsible person. You want to keep everyone on the same page. You want everyone to know what everyone else is doing and what the plan is. And in this little graphic down here, you can see this was from 2018. We've got a Witch's Brew display, a Netflix graveyard display, World Mental Health Day, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and then into November, we've got Native American history, we've got Diwali, we've got Veterans Appreciation. All kinds of things are going on. And I just use a simple Excel spreadsheet, and I've got the dates, a range of dates. The dates are flexible, and then the name of the display, which kind of gives off a clue. And then, oh yeah, hi Kristen. Yes, thank you for loving my spreadsheet. We're librarians. We keep track of stuff. And then also here we've got some initials behind some of these displays. Those are the staff members that are responsible for those ones. I'm really bad about putting my initials in this. So all the ones that don't have initials, they're probably mine. Oh yeah, Carolyn, thank you very much for the cat memes. I've got more coming. Also, the Netflix graveyard was a really cool display, and I'm going to tell you about it. We used our Cricut machine to cut out tombstone shapes, black tombstone shapes, and then we rested TV shows and films that have been taken off the Netflix programming schedule against those tombstones. And we did it in October because it was spooky, and it was really, really popular. That was definitely a curated display. There was a lot of work that went into researching which television shows and which films were taken off Netflix. And the internet's a great resource for that. I'm going to tell my colleagues who are responsible for the Netflix graveyard how cool that idea was and how it's going to spread across the United States. Awesome. Thanks, guys. So, building your displays, I just mentioned that we used our Cricut machine. If anyone doesn't know what that is, it's kind of just, it'll cut out shapes on paper, fabric, vinyl, whatever you want. And the library owns one, and we let our patrons use it. And it's great for making additional things to add to your display to just give it a bit of oomph. So the display in this picture that we're looking at here, this was for Banned Books Week. We have suspended a book in this cube as it's going into the fire. Really dramatic, really dramatic. But it was fun. We had a trivia contest attached to this one, and that's pretty much just tissue paper and fishing line inside that box. Um, and that was a fun display. When you're building your book displays, don't be afraid to add things that are not books. Add your DVDs that are related to that topic. Add statues, pamphlets, coffee cups, Viking ships. Yes, Viking ships. We were using a book display to promote a program about the real Vikings. It was about a week before the second season of the History Channel's Viking program came on, and so we did a book display about Vikings, and I made a paper mache Viking ship and added it to the display, and that was pretty fun. I mean, who wouldn't love a job where you can play with paper mache? Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you for the compliments. Yes, patrons do get shocked when they realize that certain books were banned. We've always got, every time I do a banned book display, I make sure there's a Bible on there so that people are, oh, even this? Yes, even this has been banned. So, you know, raid your closets, go through your desks. If you have like a dinosaur room in your library where just all the old stuff goes, go through there, beg and borrow and find all kinds of stuff to incorporate into your book displays because they can be just more than books. So, one of my favorite things about book displays is that they can be counted as passive programming. And if your library supports the collection of programming statistics, it's not too far off to incorporate these passive programming statistics. And because the more statistics we collect, the more we can turn in, the more statistics we turn in, the better we look, and the better we look, the more funding we get. Because I've never seen a library that's ever been adequately funded. We're all underfunded, so let's boost our statistics. But when it comes to passive programming, you want to remember that only curated book displays can be considered passive programs. The Netflix Graveyard was definitely a curated book display. There was research that went into it, a lot of staff involvement. Whereas if we're just putting a cart full of paperbacks next to the self-checkout desk as an impulse buy, we can't really count that as a passive programming because it hasn't been curated. Does everyone see the difference there? I hope. Okay. So book displays as passive programming. You can incorporate more than just a display of materials into your book displays. You can ask people to vote at your book display, who do you like better, Harry Potter or the Hunger Games, and they can vote by sticking sticky notes in this area or by putting, a bean in this bowl. You get creative and go with your theme. Trivia contests are a lot of fun. If you have the right sort of patrons, you can do a movie-themed books to film display, and then ask trivia questions about certain books and films, and then there you go. You've got people participating in their own time, making a visit to the library an experience and less of a chore. Guessing contests are a lot of fun. How many M&Ms are in this jar? If you are the closest, you win the jar. So you're getting people participating in your book displays. Participatory bulletin boards, where I did a display honoring Joyce Carol Oates' story, Where Are You Going? Where Have You Been? I just put up a map and I left post-it note sticky arrows and said, where are you going? Use the red one. Where have you been? Use the blue one. And that way people could tell us in their own time where they have traveled before and where would they most likely to travel. And so it was a travel and Joyce Carol Oates mashup display, which a lot of people didn't get, but it was surprisingly successful. Scavenger hunts are always fun. If you want to get your patrons exploring the further space of your library, you can go on any kind of theme and then, for example, a fall theme. Find all of these leaves in the library, and then you're going to strategically put them in places where you want to highlight that particular service or collection or genre of books. Like, did you find the leaf in the science fiction section? Did you know we had a science fiction section? It's another way to get your patrons interacting with the library with very little effort from staff and on their own time. Poetry contests are always fun. April is National Poetry Month. Hello, everyone. It's National Poetry Month. You can ask people to write haikus. It's If you ask them to write a haiku, then you can just stick them up. You know, you use a piece of tape, or if you have a bulletin board, put them on the bulletin board, and that way people are participating. They're sharing their haikus, and you are offering books about poetry or books about April or flowers or rain or showers. It's all in good fun. So, statistics, I mentioned how important it is to keep track of your statistics. So what you want to do is you want to record the number of items offered on each display and increase that number every time you refill that display. So we offered for our Netflix graveyard, we ended up offering a total of 51 items, and here it looks like the stats said we had 16 people participate during that month. And so that means that 16 people took things off of this display and it was refilled after that. That seems a little low to me. I'm wondering if we had some miscalculation there. So, you know, as long as you're keeping track of how many items you're putting on display, when you take the display down, just subtract the remaining items. And that way you say, okay, we had this many displays during this month, and this many displays generated this many passive program participation statistics. And, you know, your boss might really be into it. Say, oh, great, you had this many people participating in this. If you really need some good reason to do more with your book displays, to use them more proactively, or to create a guidelines or a responsible person for your book displays, this statistical example is really powerful if you take it to the boss. So if you put up your book display on January 30 and you start with 28 items, and then you see there's some empty spaces, so you replace those with other titles, 5 more, then you have a total of 33. And you continue to do this until you remove the book display, and it only has 23 items on it. So you had a total of 63 items that you put on display. Subtract that 23 from it, and you had 40 participations. And here's where the math gets fun. If the display was up for 19 days and the library was closed on the 2 Sunday during the period, your display was up for 17 days of service. You had 40 participations during those 17 days of service, which equals up to about 2.5 participations per day. The total cost of the program was only about an hour and a half of total staff time, plus office and craft supplies. And so for an average of about 5 minutes a day, a single staff member can produce 2 to 4 passive programming statistics per day. Now imagine if you had more than one passive programming book display up at the same time. You can really start to increase your passive programming participation statistics. If anyone else wants any more advice on statistics, I am happy to help you. I do love math, and it does make people cry. So, so you've got permission to do book displays. You're going to follow your library's mission statement. You're going to follow the goals. You're going to stay on track. You have a responsible person to do it. You know where you're going to put them, and you know what you're going to use to build them. But now you need to find an inspiration, a good idea like the Netflix graveyard. Social media is just wonderful for finding book displays because it's in everyone's nature to just be very proud of a good book display. We take a picture of it and we put it online. So if you're looking for ideas for book displays, definitely scroll through your social media feeds. Also, ideas for book displays can be found looking at your community trends. Look at your library event calendar. Start promoting a program. Recently, we had one of the survivors from the History Channel's Alone television. His name was Britt Ahart. He was on 2 seasons of the program. He came to talk to us at the library about his experience, and we promoted it with a book display of survival manuals. And I couldn't believe how well it went. People just love that kind of stuff, I guess, at least in my neck of the woods. Also, your community event calendar. If you've got an organization that's putting up, a free community concert, you can add that to a music book display, thereby letting your community know that you're in touch with what is happening outside of the library as well. Also, reading trends. I've noticed, if a lot of books these days are coming out with cuss words in the title, and they would make a great display, and I'm itching to do it, but I'm not quite sure how well it's going to go over. If you work in the kind of library that you think that would be successful, by all means go do it. Instead of the bad words in the title, I chose to go with the word girl in the title. Lots of books are coming out with, the girl who kicked the hornet's nests, Gone Girl, The Girl on the Train. Just off the top of my head, you can get all of those girly books together, and I called it Who's That Girl? It's going pretty good. Also, television trends, like when Vikings is coming back on, get your Vikings book out. When I guess Game of Thrones is going to be back on TV soon, get your fantasy books out and let people know that you're with them in that pop culture space as well. Chase's calendar of events is still my ultimate favorite resource. I always request that the library I work for buy a print edition of the current Chase's calendar of events. And that's because the very beginning, like 60 to 80 pages or so, they're orange, and they tell you ahead of time what's going to happen. You can find out that it's the 50th anniversary of such and such event is going to be happening this summer. And boom, you've got a library programming idea and a book display idea, all built into this Chase's calendar of events. I can't recommend that resource enough. All right, so tips and tricks nitty gritty. So if you don't have fancy like acrylic boxes or major bookends or fancy things to create depth or width or dimension in your book displays, all you have is a table, that's okay. Libraries are full of boxes. We are always sending materials out to one place or another, and we're always getting boxes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Juan Carlos, yes, 50 years of the moon landing. Yep. Juan Carlos knows about the Chase's calendar of events. You can take those boxes that libraries have lying around and just get some simple wrapping paper so that they look pretty, and then you can set your book displays on top of them. Also, you can hang stuff from the ceiling. The example on the right here, they have these big white puff balls hanging from the ceiling with fishing line, which is one of my absolute favorite resources. for book displays. I can hang anything from the ceiling with a paper clip and fishing line. And it draws interest and it gets people, festive and in the mood, or informs them that, hey, this is something special over here that you want to look at. If you don't have book stands, repurpose book ends. These metal bookends that you see on the right, they work great for holding books up face out on your display tables, especially for like paperback books, which we're seeing a lot more in libraries. Oh, yeah, Kristen says that she loves Chase's. I love Chase's too. It's wonderful. If you haven't got your hands on a print copy of Chase's calendar of events, definitely try to do that. So in this next example, we have Aren't You Glad You Read? What I like about this display, it's not one of mine, but it's very simple and quick, and you can do it in about a minute. You can see that they used bookends to prop their books face out, and they have a punny sign and a bright, eye-catching theme. Just the colors of books can make for an effective display. This book blew me away. I've seen that one before. And have you read this book, or aren't you glad you read in this current example? And we actually had a rainbow display, and that was really effective, surprisingly so. And all you have to do is find books in that color, and they can be nonfiction books, they can be fiction books, they can be music CDs. Anything that matches the color can go in that display. Juan Carlos has a suggestion for a dummies collection. Those displays are usually incredibly popular. And also easy to put up. You just walk through your library stacks in the nonfiction section, looking for that telltale spine, the 4 dummies. You pull out an armload of those and set them out, and people are going to be like, "Oh, I didn't know that I could learn this at the library for free." Yes, Rachel Barrel, she mentions the theme. I don't remember the title, but the cover was blue. Um, because those are the kind of reference questions that we get at libraries. What's the title of this book? I read it when I was 16. It was blue and big. Do you have it? And so getting the punny signage, the theme, you want to use the entire space, and you want to have face out arrangements, like in this example where they simply took a small bookshelf and turned it into an incredibly effective book display by simply turning the books face out and making sure they're propped up and adding a punny sign. One thing I do want to mention that's really important for book displays is that you only need one hand to pick up the book that's on display that you are interested in. Everyone has seen that parent with a crying toddler on their hip and a basket in the other hand where they've got their library materials that they're carrying through the library. You want to make sure if that parent who's distracted by a crying toddler and their other arms already laid down can quickly grab the item that they're looking for. So you definitely want to avoid stacking books one on top of another. That format works great for bookstores or James Patterson books, of which, everyone has a billion of those. Hey, James Patterson's a display all by himself. There are so many James Patterson books. Last month he came out with 3, I think? Or too many. So one-hand grabs are the way to go. Make sure people don't have to shift your display around to get to the particular book that they were looking for. More tips and tricks, combine formats. Here we've got some Harry Potter programming coming up this summer, and we circulate board games, we circulate the soundtracks, we have nonfiction books about the making of the movies, we have the illustrated editions, we have the regular print books, we have the DVD movies. Everything can go on your display. It doesn't have to be limited to just books. Any circulating library material that fits with your theme can go on display. And you can use anything to build a display, a pop-up display. We do those a lot when an author has passed away. Like for Sue Grafton, we pulled all of her books out, displayed them on a cart, and we had a pop-up display. You can use tables, basic table, put a tablecloth on it, boom, there you go. Put your sign on there, says, please check out these books. And then you put your books up face out, one hand grabs, and you're good to go. You can use library shelving for book displays as well. We had a true crime display on library shelving, and to make it stand out, I papered the shelves. You can use wrapping paper to kind of make the shelves stand out from the other group of shelves. You can use counters. Um, Pretty much anywhere where you can balance a book or library materials so that they're face out is an opportunity for a book display. You can get crafty with your book display. This is definitely a passive program here. You can display craft or origami books and set out the materials for that craft and have people just sit as they're in the library, fold up a swan or something, and then they can take an origami book home afterwards and share it with their family. So crafty displays tend to be pretty fun. Another fun thing that we can do with book displays is to add whimsy to it. Paper dolls are always fun. This guy on the upper right here, that's a Hamlet. There's a website, Cheer Up Hamlet, where you can download paper dolls and add them to your relevant book displays. Also, in the bottom left here, we've got books about oceans and fish. And our summer reading theme this year is Under the Sea. So we are going to be doing a lot of ocean book displays. And here we've got, there's a ray, is that, well, that's a kind of a ray fish and a puffer fish. And these were printed from the internet with the instructions to cut and fold and paste them. And that's from Creative Park. Sure, this made it into the resource pages. I was going over this last night, but it's creativepark.canon. You can get free printable activities where your patrons can do them, or you can do them to add these whimsy items to your book displays to make it a little more enticing to people. It's not just books. We've got these other things that are pretty cool too. How did they make that? That kind of thing. So for trivia, yes, for your trivia book displays, you can set up books relevant to your topic, like Banned Books Week, National Spay Neuter Awareness Month, Women's History Month, and then ask your trivia questions that are relevant to that one. And then you can get people to, each entry is a participation point, but you only have to put the ones who got it right into the contest for the prize. And the prize can be something from one of your local partnering organizations. You can ask someone to give you a gift card that you're going to make the prize for this, and then you can say, have a little sign on your display, $25 gift card provided by such and such organization. And therefore it's I scratch your back, you scratch my back, building community awareness. And then also, if your guys' libraries are anything like mine, we have dozens and dozens and dozens of advanced readers' copies of books. And we have so many, we are trying to give them away as much as we can. And we can offer those ARC books as prizes. That's always a good thing. All right, I see someone's typing. I'm getting ready for questions. Oh, yeah. Advanced reader copies. You can sign up to receive them. I think it is from Idlewild. And I think LitHub. I'm going to have to look that up. Did anyone answer the question about where to get your ARCs? For me, in my experience, they just show up in my office, but I don't know how they get there. I think someone in our library signed up for ARCs a long time ago, and that's why we just keep getting them. All right, Kristen's typing, Rachel's typing. Multiple attendees are typing. Great. All right. Do you need to send them back, or are they the libraries to keep? Rachel, when we get our advanced readers copies, they are the libraries to keep, but we may not circulate them or sell them. Demira says, never knew what ARCs were until now. This might just have to be a whole nother webinar subject of how to get advanced readers copies. Advanced readers copies, they're unproofed. And so the publishing companies and the distribution companies, they'll send them out to people who like books, and in exchange you usually have to do a review or something. Thank you, Susan. NetGalley and Edelweiss. Yes, NetGalley and Edelweiss. If you sign up with them, you can get your boxes of advanced readers copies sent to you. And sometimes you'll get some good gems in them, and sometimes you're like, I've never heard of this author before. They're only sending me this because they have no idea what's going on. All right. That does sound like fun, says Damaris. Yes. Advanced readers copies are fun, and they do make great prizes, but we can't circulate them or sell them, so we are just trying to give them away. All right, so I breezed through my book display presentation, and I did it pretty quickly. We've got, I'd say, about 10 to 15 minutes left for suggestions or comments. And so I want to leave the floor open to all of you participants. I see there's about 21 of you. And I'd love to go over some of your favorite book displays. I know some of my favorites was like I did an Insomniac book display one time, and it was a list of books that people thought were boring, like The Cure for Insomnia, Moby Dick, or Les Miserables, or other really, Crime and Punishment, those kinds of books that are just sluggish, slow-going reading. They'll put you to sleep. It didn't circ very much, but it was fun. Yes, thank you. Rachel says the insomnia display sounds fun, and it is fun because we're kind of poking fun at ourselves, and because everyone knows that there are just some books that are, yeah, they may be considered classics, or classics of the American canon, but we all know they're kind of boring. Other displays that I've had a lot of fun with are the kind of a variation on the blind date with a book display. You wrap them up in paper so people don't know what they're getting. I experienced great success with this type of display during Christmas time. I wrapped up the books as Christmas presents, complete with bows, and the tags on the books were vague description of the books. For example, I wrapped up John Scalzi's Red Shirts book, and the tag said, "For someone who loves humor and Star Trek." And you know what? It circled, and it was pretty good. Because book displays, they'll work into your readers advisory programs, they'll work into your library's mission statements. They can do really great things. You can increase your circ stats. It's good to go. Okay. Let's hear it for some questions. Anybody else out there have something they want to share? All right, I see someone's typing.
All right, give it a minute, Maggie. Sometimes
Did I
it takes
cover
a while.
everything?
Oh, Maggie, that was great.
Okay. Yeah,
I was wondering if people would have
when I
questions.
practiced this, it took a lot longer time.
Oh, yeah, that always happens. I was wondering if people would have questions about your math.
Yeah. Oh,
'Cause
yeah, the math.
that was interesting.
The math
Yeah.
is fun. Yeah,
And making
the
displays
compiling
into
of
something.
statistics. A lot of people don't realize that profitable for the library. Okay, so Damaris asks, when you make displays, do you get resources on your own, or does your library have roles or rules about buying resources for work? So that's a really excellent question, Damaris. And so I try to use what my library can afford for us in our displays. However, I have totally gone through and sent email after email. Hey, does anyone have a fishbowl I can use? Or does anyone have a Viking helmet I can borrow? I definitely reach out to my coworkers and ask them if I can borrow this to put it on display. When it comes to buying things for book displays, that's really going to depend on if your library has an available budget for that. You can definitely do this on shoestring, some construction paper or some cardstock and good high quality printer. You can do pretty amazing things with that. Um, Finding your own display is expensive, and it's one of my favorite things. And I don't mind bringing in my own fishing line because I don't need the whole thing. Um, Kristen wants to know, I did the mustache display for November, No Shave-vember, and got a lot of comments. I put mustaches on all the books. I thought it was pretty common display, but the students loved it. Kristen, I have seen that one online, and it is hilarious. It's like a take on the Book Face Friday, where you have people um, hold up books to match their body, and that's fun. And then, but when you put the mustaches on the books, it's No Shave November, and yeah, people get a hoot out of that. All right, Kristen Corbin says loot from youth services if you're at a public library. I loot from youth services so much. I've even asked them for Play-Doh, and you know what? They've delivered. Um, for some of my adult book displays in my current library, we serve a lot of adults with children. And they have to walk through the adult section to get to the children's section. So a lot of times I will incorporate children's books into my displays because the adult with the child has to look at the display if the child's like, I want that book that dragons eat tacos. And when I did a dragon display, um, that book got a lot of attention. Oh yeah, dragons displays. You use your puns. The dragon display was a lot of fun. It was "Don't be dragging your feet. Sign up for this library program now." And dragons actually had nothing to do with the library program, but it was a fun pun. Carolyn Swanson says, "Go to the dollar store." Truly, you can find good things at the dollar store. And you know, if you've got a budget, definitely, whatever you buy for your book displays can stay with the library for future book displays because a lot of times we recycle our ideas and we don't need to reinvent the wheel all the time. It's okay to do a yearly St. Patrick's display. And Juan Carlos says, any recommendation for magazines? Magazines, yeah, you can put magazines on display. I've done that a lot when it comes to sports figures because they're more current. I've definitely put Sports Illustrated on display. We did a Royals display last year for the wedding, um, and so the Royals are all over those People magazines. I definitely put them on display, and then Kristen says, even at our academic library with our displays, I always add 3 to 5 children items thinking about students that have children and whatnot. Kristen, that's great, because we're serving the whole person, not just the adult aspect of this person. They have children. They might like children's items. Adding other items, any kind of items to your display is only going to improve this. And Rachel Barrel says yes, and for the young at heart, right? Because that we have a young at heart book club where we read is YA fiction, and that's okay. If it goes with the theme of your book display, definitely add it to that book display. Courtney, I see you've got your hand raised. Is there something I can do for you? Ah, Kristen Corbin says for the Black History Month display, the highest checkouts were the children's book, and she just kept adding more. Yes, that's exactly the kind of thing that we want to do. Children's book displays and adult book displays, I mean, children's book displays are easy and they're fun, but we can model our adult book displays on those same premises.
Everyone's
All
typing.
right, I see
We
we've
may
got
have
a few
lots of
more
comments
people
coming in.
typing. Oh, cool. I would suggest leaving a list of items on the display at the service desk in the circulation area, so if one of the items is requested in person or on hold, it can be found, so other staff know where to look for items. Is it Mina? I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. That is a great point. So depending on your library's process, your integrated library system, some integrated library systems can support an exhibit status for books that go on display. Um, and you definitely want to have great communication all around. If you're going to be putting up a big display to celebrate Marvel's Avengers Endgame coming out later this month, and you're going to pull all of the Marvel material off the shelves for that display, you want to let everyone know that that's where they're going to be looking for all of those Marvel items. So either leaving a list of items that are on display, or sending an email out like, hey, all of the books that have birds in the title are going to be on this counter over here for the duration of this display. That way things don't get marked missing. Really excellent point, Mina. Right. Carolyn says, I rob books from the children's on topics where we don't have enough adult books, like Thanksgiving. Yes. It I don't recommend robbing the children's department, but maybe working together with them for a shared goal. I know around certain times of the year you just can't find books about Carolyn says, I give them back later. Yeah, they'll get them back eventually. But definitely make sure if you have two different departments who are doing book displays, you want to make sure you're not overlapping anything or stepping on anyone's toes, which is why communication is so important. You can use a spreadsheet for communication, you can send out emails for communication, but definitely make sure you're serving your whole library's mission statement when you start borrowing materials from other departments. Some libraries are funny about keeping statistics. Like this statistic can only be in the adult services column if it only served adults, and this statistic can only be in the children's services column if it was meant to serve children. So sometimes there's an overlap there, and that's going to be a variable that is going to be unique to your own situation and to your own library, but it's definitely a variable that you're going to want to look into.
And I don't know if you mentioned this, Maggie, but one thing you can do if you are emptying a section is put up a book dummy or a sign that says, see this display about birds on the second floor, in where they should be, so that people know there's a display up.
Absolutely. We have in our library, we have all of our business books are set aside in our business section. So when people are going through the stacks and they reach that Dewey Decimal range and they don't see any business books, we have a sign there that says business books are over here, or ask us and we'll help you find them. And so yeah, if you're going to pull out all of the James Patterson books for a semi-permanent display, if you have a display area big enough for all of the James Patterson books, you might want to leave a little a dummy book or a flyer that says, hey, looking for James Patterson? He's on display over there. Excellent. Excellent, excellent. All right.
I don't see anybody else typing, but if there are any questions, feel free.
Nope.
So I want to thank Maggie for putting this together. Excellent presentation. And thank you all for coming and for your great suggestions.
Everyone, thanks so much. Definitely brainstorming for your book displays is great because we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time we need to do a book display. I am totally unashamed to say that I totally do other people's displays that I see on the internet. I'm like, I'm going to do that. Not all of them are my idea. So
right,
yes,
exactly.
share.
We have to share.
Collaborate. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everyone, and thanks again, Maggie. Have a great day, everybody.